I've always been that person that was very sensitive to environmental issues, but I never really did anything about it until around 2000, 2001, when I became aware of the U.S. Green Building Council, the LEED rating system. Dave Ashley became one of the very first LEED accredited professionals in New York State. And I followed on his heels, and we just browbeat the other architects in the office to do it.
Well, that's kind of what it takes, right? And that's about the time when when the entire industry started recognizing that there is such a thing as a sustainable product. I mean, It was just really in 2000 that it started to catch on. So kudos for being so aware and ready to accept that incredibly challenging moment where you have to pay attention to what you're specifying beyond whether the client likes it and it looks good in the space and creates comfort for the people.
Right.
So I want Diane to give us her definition of a sustainable product, because I know that Diane's vocabulary or definition of what this means may not be synonymous with other definitions that are out there. So I'd love to hear your definition.
Everybody wants a simple explanation for things that are this complicated. And the thing that interested me the most is the impact that it had on people's health, and some of the horrifying realizations that what was the statistic, like 80,000 chemicals in common use that have never been tested for human toxicity, and those kind of astonishing things.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lauren Stanek.
And I'm Jody Smits-Anderson.
I'm curious to know, what's your take on the impact of human health in our product specifications, especially now with the presence of COVID-19 and a pandemic? I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Well, COVID is all about air quality, right? And respiratory system. And so there's the tie-in between already compromised respiratory systems, not only from air pollution that comes from manufacturing all those products that we put into our buildings, but in the indoor environment, which, the statistic out there is something like 50 times more polluted indoor air than outdoor air. Right. So with already compromised respiratory systems, and now we have this respiratory disease, right. What a challenge.
Houses, people are starting to kind of come full circle, kind of the way that, commercial buildings have been getting their envelopes tighter, for example. So now that we don't have all of that kind of breathability from interior to exterior, what's that doing?
So yes, air exchanges, that's another huge issue.
Wow, and that's beyond the typical scope for an interior designer. So you probably get a lot of pushback when you're in a team and you're bringing up things at that level. And quite frankly, I think design teams need to embrace that kind of savviness from every single team member. So that's another thing to be aware of. If anyone out there who's watching this is part of a design and construction team, be aware that every insight is valuable and can inform the project.
Right. Well, that was the whole concept with the LEED rating system. You put everybody at the table, and that's how I got, little nuggets of knowledge about mechanical systems and air exchanges and all that.
You have a whole organization that you are one of the at the forefront of, right? GreeningUSA. Can you talk to people about what GreeningUSA is and what they do?
Oh boy, yes. Well, so GreeningUSA took on everything, which keeps it interesting. And there was that fateful day in 2003 when Dave Ashley came over to my desk and said, "Hey, I'm starting this green group. Do you want to be part of it?" GreeningUSA advocates for sustainable communities to the benefit of local economies and environments. So there's that three-legged stool of sustainability. We created this thing called the 12 Traits of Sustainable Communities, and we kind of hammered out just about every aspect of what goes into making a community. We really tried to address everything, including the arts. And we put it up on our website, and it was free for people to access. And it wasn't long before I got a call at work. Wow, we're looking at your sustainable community rating system. Can you tell us more about that?
Cool.
And it wasn't long before ICLEI had their very own sustainable community rating system. I say, oh, we're just trying to create this really sustainable community here in central New York as a model for other communities throughout the USA.
Mm-hmm. That's actually what I was going to say. I mean, you've already shared a story about something that you've developed that was then parlayed into impact at a larger level by other organizations. Your impact is huge.
Well, our impact that we take great pride in is in driving the agenda in central New York. So after we developed this 12 traits rating system, we actually managed to recruit the city of Syracuse back when Stephanie Miner was mayor. And they used that rating system to do a self-assessment of the city, and they spent a year doing it. And they actually uncovered some things that they didn't know that needed improving, and in particular about water systems in the city. And they actually got up at our annual meeting, and they publicly admitted the stuff they found that needed improving. So we feel really good about that. Our very first annual meeting, which was back in 2004, we had a candidate forum for county executives, and we had one question that each of the freaking 8 candidates had to answer. And the question was, what are you going to do to make this a more sustainable community?
Wow.
So and they each had to answer that question. After that, annually, I would get cornered by Joni Mahoney, our previous county executive, and she would say, I always remember GreeningUSA because you forced me to look up what that meant. I had no idea what that meant. So
well,
we take pride in those little accomplishments.
I mean, wasn't that the precursor to all of the green infrastructure that happened in Syracuse to address some of those water issues?
Actually, Joni Mahoney, because we forced her to figure out what that meant, on her agenda was going to be a wastewater treatment plant in Armory Square, the only great spot in the city.
Yeah.
And she decided to bag the wastewater treatment plant and start this Save the Rain program instead. So she has done rain infrastructure projects all over the county, green roofs, rain gardens, you name it. And so we take credit for driving her agenda.
That's absolutely true. You open someone's eyes to something that they weren't yet seeing, and they were adult enough to recognize that it was good to see new things and to assess and to make change. And you can't deny the impact that you have had and that GreeningUSA has had in that realm. That's amazing.
And what a wonderful period of time where when city officials or any government officials can actually come and speak truth to the current situation and how they're going to resolve it. What a novel concept. I love it.
Matt Driscoll was the mayor, and he said, let me let you in on a little secret about government. The secret is, we don't lead, we look for a parade and we jump out in front of it.
Smart.
One of my favorite quotes from a government official. And GreeningUSA has a grassroots program. So we have top-down and bottom-up programs, and the grassroots program is called Sustainability Academy. There's just so much war on education going on right now, and learning things like the Koch brothers putting out a science book that you've heard of that, right? They were giving that away free, and it was a climate denying science book.
So there's an oxymoron right there.
Yeah, it's, that's why I keep saying education. It's,
Yeah.
and actually, you know, GreeningUSA is a 501c3 educational nonprofit in New York State, because that's what we're about, education.
So what are some of the other current projects and initiatives that GreeningUSA is working on right now? In general, COVID related, whatever, we'll take all of them. You guys do such great work, it doesn't matter.
Well, you know, a year ago, 2019, we had someone contact us from Albany and say, you know, I keep getting your newsletter and you're having these green bag lunches and they sound interesting and we'd love to, but we're in Albany.
Right.
So they said, why don't you subscribe to an online platform? So 2019, we subscribed to GoToMeeting, and which has this year turned into be a really good idea. And we ran our annual meeting on GoToMeeting, and our annual meetings are all about bringing in representatives from like-minded groups in Central New York to talk about what they're up to. And, you know, can you help us out with this, that, or collaboration? We call it the big tent.
All of the Big Ten events that I've been to, I cannot say enough about how there's so many people doing such cool and interesting things across this region, city in particular, but Central New York in general. I did not know, you know, 2/3 of the initiatives that people were there kind of supporting and trying to link up with other initiatives. It's so impressive, the minds and initiatives that GreeningUSA can draw into the room together. I've always been so impressed by that.
We got 2 graduate students and 1 undergrad, so we have 3 people. One is working on this Friday. Roberto is, and he's done an outstanding job. So he's done a lot of research on housing in Syracuse and what affordable means, and he's got a good panel lined up of local officials that will be talking with him. There's housing issues connected with the I-81 project, and a lot of people stepping up saying we want affordable low-income housing, and we're trying to drive the conversation to make it affordable and energy efficient low-income housing. So then our other intern is researching siting large-scale renewable energy projects in New York State.
What you're doing is you're opening those conversations to a larger audience through remote access, which is exceptional. And I love especially the affordable housing discussion, because I hate that so much affordable housing it means cheap up front and then extremely costly for the whole life of the building.
You tell us some of the places where people can follow you?
And truthfully, the thing that reaches out to people best is a newsletter. You know, the website is passive, but the newsletter shows up in your inbox and calls attention to itself. We also have the YouTube channel, and once again, you just go to YouTube and search for GreeningUSA. We have been recording all of our green bag lunches ever since we started in 2019. So all those recordings are up, and we have effectively doubled our audience by doing that.
Help me. Tell me, what's your most important, like, sustainability related initiative right now? Like, what's the most important thing that Diane thinks we ought to be doing?
We, as opposed like Central New York or the world or the United States, or
this is your answer. Big, take it as big as you want, or small, either way.
Grassroots education.
Ooh.
Education is all about it. So for the last Sustainability Academy I did, I created a little game called the plastic bottle game, because plastic bottles infuriate me.
Yes.
So I actually put up a board that showed the life cycle of a plastic bottle. And do you want to know what percentage of children took a look at the oil rig and said, "Oil in my bottle? No, what? I had no idea."
Really?
100% of children had no idea that bottles are made from oil.
When it becomes that background noise, when everybody is aware, when it's not a new thing introduced at the science level in middle school, then we're gonna get it.
First year, Tracy and I had passed out a list that we had developed about, 100 things that you can do to make your school more green.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them were real simple things, and some of them were pretty expensive things. So we passed out this list. Second year we go up there, a teacher comes up to Tracy and I, and she's got the list a year later.
Awesome.
And she says, I've done half of these things already.
Who's your hero? Who should we all be looking up on Twitter or reading about? Who should we all be following? Who do we need to know about?
Well, my first and foremost heroes are people like you guys. And all of our local green homies, too numerous to mention. And once again, lots of really good people doing really good things locally. But in the last year, I get goosebumps every time I see Greta Thunberg talk. She's amazing. As we talk, all these thoughts flood my head, and I remember, Syracuse University brings in really good speakers. Mm-hmm. Years ago, they brought in Wanjira Mathai from Africa, and she led the tree movement. She talked about organizing women in her country, might have been Kenya, to plant trees. And her talk was, once again, it was goosebump time.
Well, we for sure would love to have you back in the future so we can keep in touch with what you're doing and what GreeningUSA and the New York State Green Building Conference is doing and whatever else you end up doing along the way, because I've never known you to shy away from a new project too. So hopefully we get to hear more about what's going on in our area and beyond. I know that I know that the GreeningUSA newsletter does reach international audiences. Back from when I used to sit next to you at Ashley McGraw, and you would say, someone just signed on from Australia.
How cool is that?
I know. She has far reach. She downplayed it today. But we love having you. Thanks so much, Diane. We look forward to seeing you hopefully in person very soon.
Yeah, that would be so nice. Well, thanks, guys. Take care. Stay safe.